Hello everybody, Evan here for grips.com, and today I am going to continue my review of the Party Poker Bankroll Challenge. The theme of today's video, as requested by you guys, is going to be the top 5 losing pots from the challenge. This request is being heated. Some of you guys say there's more to learn from losing pots, and some of you guys just like to see the pain and suffering and would rather see me getting beat up and sucked out on than taking down those pots. So, to please everybody who watches these videos, we're going to see me get beat a few times, and I'm okay with it. I think, as was the case with the first video, that most of these pots are going to be coolers, since typically, unless you're making major errors, your biggest pots are going to be the result of coolers and setup hands. But I also acknowledge that I definitely made a few mistakes in some of these hands, and I hope that you guys will be able to learn from these mistakes that I made. So without further ado, let's get right into it. In the first hand, the villain in question was running a 40-30 with a 4% 3-bet. And for those of you guys who don't know what a 4% 3-bet looks like, I'll just pull up Poker Stove for you. And we'll just put in 4%. And you see it's something like that. 9s plus ace king, ace queen suited. Maybe the 9s aren't there and ace queen off's in there. Or maybe they have ace jack instead. Maybe king queen. The idea is you can see that there are a few value hands in there. Anyway, so we open a 3x. We get 3-bet by a player who was playing pretty tight passive, if I remember correctly, and we get a cold call. Ranges for cold calling 3-bets vary from player to player. In most cases, 100 big blind situations, you're going to find that this range is like 10s, jacks, queens, maybe ace queen suited. Some people like to flat with ace king. But as stacks get deeper, as is the case here, where I'm effectively 200 big blinds deep with this player, those ranges can be a little bit wider. So it comes back to us. I decide that, kings are a good enough hand. I'm happy to take them against the initial 3-better, and against the cold caller, I'm also feeling like kings are pretty far ahead of most of the hands he's going to be flatting with. So I re-raise to 36. Given that I'm a little deep stacked with one of the players in the hand, I'm going to 4-bet to a larger size than I would if I were simply 100 big blinds deep. Mr. Flugel flats, and then to my surprise, all in lose back shoves all in. And I'm still pretty happy with the spot. Obviously, we're never happy to get in 200 or 300 or 400 big blinds with anything less than the stone cold nizzles, unless we're up against a complete psychopath. But I felt that he wasn't that likely to have flatted a 3-bet with aces. And if he did, nice hand, what are you going to do? I figured that he was going to show up with queens here a lot, and it looks like a decent spot to put on a re-squeeze and just get all the money in and not see a bad flop. So I was happy to put the money in, and Mr. Flugel was also happy to put the money in. Board ran out pretty good, and you guys can probably guess what happened here, how I lost. Mr. Flugel had jacks, and all in did have the aces. Obviously, it was disappointing to get felted for 200 big blinds in this spot, but I do feel that this was a cooler situation. I didn't have enough evidence to really fold kings in this spot. To be able to fold kings pre-flop, especially in a short-handed dynamic, you're going to need a really good read, a really good tell on your player. Most of the time, it's going to have to be a live scenario for you to be able to fold kings, or you're going to have to be playing some sort of tournament where maybe it's a satellite tournament, and you're at that point where it just doesn't make sense to get involved with any hands whatsoever other than aces, or in some cases, aces as well. So I feel that this is a cooler, and if you guys disagree, please feel free to say so in the comments. And also, Don't use that as a crutch, though. If the spot is a cooler and everyone else says it's a cooler, then it's fine for you to get the money in. But it's important to not just say something's a cooler when it's not, to justify a poor play. Like if we'd been 400 big blinds deep here and I just got in kings, I think that would be a mistake. But I think for 200, it's okay. Anyway, yeah, let me know what you guys think about that pot. Now, the next hand is a little crazy, so I'm going to throw something out there. If you guys like what you see and you would like to try out Party Poker, which is where the majority of this bankroll challenge was filmed, where I ran $100 up to 10,000 over about 100,000 hands, please use the sign up link below the video just to support the Grips Poker Training Project and show some love. Nice hand. All right, so number 2, we got pocket aces, and villain in this hand was running a 54-28 with a 3-bet of 16. So pretty wild player. And he opens to 9x. So against this type of player, as we saw in the first video, we want to get the money in and we want to get the money in fast. So the best way to do that is to size our bets very large. That's really the only way to do it. If I make it like 18 or 20 here to try to keep him in, he's obviously going to continue, but it's going to be more difficult to be able to get all the money in on early streets or by the river. So for those reasons, I go 27. I think I could go even bigger, because against these types of opponents who make it really large, 8x, 9x, 10x, 12x, you're probably mostly going to see them on Fridays and Saturdays. But they like to see flops, and they really don't tend to care how much they cost. So you want to get as much money in pre-flop as you can. He calls. Flop is not the best. Obviously, when you have aces, or any hand for that matter, you don't want a flop that's completely connected like this. But given how wide my opponent's range is and how many hands he's willing to play, I really just don't give a shit. I've got the best starting hand in Hold'em. I'm gonna go to the felt with this one pretty much no matter what happens. So I bet 30. Looking back, I think I'd like to see myself bet a little bigger just because of quite how draw heavy this board is. But hindsight's 20/20. In the moment, I went with 30. Maybe I wanted to encourage some floats with random overcards. These guys who are super loose will peel you with some absurd holdings. Turn was pretty good for me. If he somehow had 7-8, which he probably doesn't, since he would most likely raise the flop with that, I have counterfeited. And a 6 isn't all that likely. Also, the 6 coming reduces his chances of having a 6. Either way, it's still pretty much the same thing it was on the flop. I have 2 aces against a terrible player. I'm going to try to get the money in. And again, I think I'd like to see myself bet a little bigger. But I guess I wanted to keep him around. I was going on the greedy side. He calls, river fills all the draws, and I have 54 left, and there's 250 in the middle. Now, the important thing here is that with the amount of money that's in the pot, I'm not planning to fold my hand. So I have the option of check calling or of betting myself. And I think even though all the draws got there, well, not all the draws, but the low straight draw and the flush draw both got there. He's going to be just as worried about that as I am if he doesn't have a draw. So if he has a hand like 8x or 7x that he'd be willing to call with, or some overpair, he may check that back if I check. However, if I bet, given that he's going to be getting 6-1, he's probably going to call with those hands. So since I'm planning to put the $54 in regardless of what happens, I don't want to give him a chance to check back a hand that may otherwise give me some value. So I want to bet myself and give myself the best chance to extract value from his whole range. If he happened to get there with a draw, I'm okay with that. Looking back, I would have liked to see myself bet bigger to make it more of an error for him to draw, but nothing I can do about it now. So I bet, he calls, he rolls over 5 deuce for a straight, and AA beat by the Norwegian nuts. On to the next one. In this hand, villain number 1 is 80-20, so he's pretty absurd. And villain 2 is 28-21, so he is a reasonably legit player. That's a Sectum Sempra. He opens, I 3-bet kings. We get a cold call from the 80-20 guy and a flat from Sectum. So against the guy who's playing 80-20, it's the same spot as the ace as the hand before. I don't give a shit. I have a really strong hand. I'm going with it regardless of what happens. The only person I have to be concerned about is Sectum, but it's going to be based on the action. So I c-bet. Obviously, we get a jam from the wacko, and Sectum min raises. Now, his range for doing this is going to be sets. If he has the 6s, 9s, 3s. He may also do this with weaker overpairs, 10s, jacks, queens, if he decided to call with them pre-flop, as he probably figures he's ahead of the 80-20 player's range. I could also see him doing this with combo draws. I don't really expect him to do this with like a 9x or 6x type hand, so I'm pretty much up against some weaker overpairs, some sets, and some flush draws, and maybe straight draws. Overall, against that range, I'm fine to go with it with my kings. I think I'm going to have the first player smashed, and if the second player outflop me, c'est la vie. I think more often I have the best hand than the times that I'm beat, and so overall against the range, I'm happy to take my equity. So I just rip it in. He calls, and we lose effectively a flip. He had pair and then a flush draw. Very strong hand. You know, if I'm him, I'm doing the exact same thing. I would consider shoving instead of min-clicking myself. And calling may be an option if you want to encourage weaker draws to stick around. The value of shoving is that maybe you can scare me off a hand that has good equity. Either way, we did have ida-bida-bida smashed, and that's what tends to happen when you have 80-20 players in the game. They really just juice up the action. Like, had he not been in the pot, I think I would probably just take this thing down pre-flop with my 3-bet. But, you know, they make the game action, they make it exciting, and they make it easy. Unfortunately, I wasn't the benefactor of a close spot in this situation. All right, next situation is against a player who is playing 82-60 with a 3-bet of 45% and a 4-bet range of 15%. So this is going to be similar to hand number 2. We got an 8x open, similar to the 9x open. And against an opponent who is willing to get it in with a wide range, which I'll just show you guys what a 16% 4-bet range looks like. And we can see how tens does against that range. This is hypothetical. You won't necessarily get it in with all these hands, but just wanted to give you guys an idea of just how wide that range is. And I want to make it so his 4-bets all in. If I 3-bet small, then he's going to have to 4-bet. I'm going to 5-bet. And now I don't know how wide his 6-bet range is. It may only be 10%, which is still fine. It may be 4%, which is not as nice. But we know that his 4-bet range is 16%. And I'd seen that this guy was pretty much just willing to get it in pre-flop with any sort of shit. So I opted to size very large, making the next bet all in. He obliged, and I snap called. Unfortunately for me, he actually had a value hand this time, but I think within 20 minutes I managed to get all that back from him because he was just like a terrible, terrible player. But the key concept of this hand is that against an opponent who is willing to get it in with a wide range, you want to make it as easy as possible for him to get the money in. If you size it larger, especially against an opponent who doesn't really pay attention to bet sizing, they just pay attention to how many bets, you can make it so fewer bets are required to get all the money in. And it is definitely easier to get an opponent to put it in for 4 bets than it is for 6 or 8 bets, because when they see all the clicking happen, eventually they might be like, hey, wait, what's going on. This guy's put in like 12 bets pre-flop. Maybe he has a better hand than me. Okay. On to the next one. And this is the first of the big losing hands where I really didn't like my play. So we have a post and a limp. We obviously isolate with 2 jacks and get 3-bet by a player who is playing 23-17 8. So pretty tight aggressive. And we flat. I didn't want to just get it in pre-flop against this player, despite being out of position. And I just wanted to, play it by ear as the flop came. I check. He c-bets, and now here's decision time. I think against a very weak opponent, a check raise here can be good because it gives them a chance to stack off with, 7s through 10s before a scare card comes that may slow down the action. Let's say he has 8s that he's willing to stack off with because he's just a bad player who thinks that an overpair is the nuts. Those guys still exist. And then we just check call and the turn's like a queen. He's probably not going to barrel off anymore, and we don't want to give him the opportunity to pot control. However, this guy was, probably a thinking player, and against this sort of opponent, I think it's more of a way ahead, way behind situation. He's 3-bet pre. His range isn't going to be absurdly wide for that. He's going to have some bigger pairs than me, a couple smaller pairs, probably not too many, and then like some overcard type hands and some bluffs. Now this opponent who is thinking may fold the smaller pairs to a check raise. He's also going to fold all his bluffs to a check raise. I think in this situation it's better to let him keep the lead. If he has a bigger pair than me, I will lose the minimum. And I will also give myself a chance to win the maximum when he has bluffs. A lot of players, when they 3-bet, just like to barrel off. Those ones who aren't thinking or don't have too much practice in 3-bet pots. And yes, an ace or a king might fall, and I may be forced to fold my hand to a bet. But if he has a narrow range of hands for 3-betting, then folding in this spot when an ace or king comes is probably fine, because when those cards come, they hit most of his hands, and I now will find myself in a very poor equity spot against his total range. I may also lose less against kings and queens. If I think he's someone who 3-bets wide and likes to barrel, I want to give him rope. And I want to give him a chance to fire on those turns and put it in when he has poor equity, or all turns for that matter. And by check raising, I take this option away and reduce his range to value hands. So you can probably guess what I did. I check raised to set the pot up that I could get all in on the turn. He called, and I got a good turn. I was like, all right, good stuff. Let's hope he has 8s, 9s, or 10s. And he was too smart. He had kings. And if he had shoved on the flop, I'm pretty sure in the moment I was probably planning on calling. So I just kind of set myself up to get stacked post-flop. And, well, I may have ended up getting stacked if I check called all 3 streets, as I probably wouldn't like hero fold the river. I do allow him to be putting in 3 bets with some hands that I have beat, rather than restricting his range to exclusively hands that have me in bad shape, which is what happens by me check raising. Okay, and now we will go on to the final hand against someone who probably doesn't like house music. I Hate D Guetta was running a 27-25-11 with a 4-bet of 5.4%. I believe I had either played a big 3-bet pot with him before or a 4-bet pot with him before on a different table where he had kind of spazzed out. So we had some history and we had some dynamic. So I 3-bet this hand, fully expecting to get 4-bet him a lot in such a good squeeze spot. And he 4-bet, and now it's decision time. I can fold, which I think, given the fact that we have history, is out of the question. I could call and, stack off on any ace or queen high board, or I could shove. So let's look at some analysis about the situation. His 4-bet range is 5.4%, which could be a couple things. It could look something like this, with those being the value hands, and these being the bluffs. Or if he has a bit of a wider value range, maybe he has 10s for value, ace queen for value. I think in my calculations I didn't use ace queen, so we'll go there. Yeah, something like that. Either way, this is the value range. Now, if we're going to get it in, he's going to be folding his bluffs and only getting in with his value range. So if he has the wider value range, as seen here, my equity with ace queen is going to be 31%. And if he has a narrow value range that doesn't include pocket tens, my equity is going to be 28%. I think my calculations are going to be wrong. But I did some math on this. So here's what the situation is. Against the wide value range, he has 46 value hands and 28 bluff hands, which means if I shove it in, he's going to fold 38% of the time. If he has the narrow value range, he has 40 value hands and 32 bluff hands, fewer value hands, more bluffs, which means he will fold to a shove 44% of the time. We're assuming he folds whenever he's bluffing and that he calls whenever he has value. Now we look at the expectations to do expected value. And I just want to say something before I get into this. I'm not a huge math guy, so there may be some mistakes here. And guys, feel free to point them out so that I can improve my math game too, because it's probably something I should get better at. So my expectations, if I fold, I surrender the $10 that I've put into the pot when I 3-bet. If I shove, a few things happen. When he folds, I gain the $36.50 that's in the middle. My 10 plus his 24 plus that's 2.5. And when he calls, I have 30% equity in a $263 pot. Now I skipped through some calculations. I did them on another sheet, but they were really messy. They were probably wrong. And the EV I came out with of shoving was that I lose $11.40 overall. So the EV of folding is greater than the EV of shoving. So then, why did I shove? Good question. The important thing is to look at the bigger picture. Okay. If I only 5-bet with my strongest value hands, like ace, king plus, and queens plus, and he knows that, he's going to only call me with some pretty strong hands himself. But when he sees that I am capable of 5-betting all in with ace, queen, he has to call with more hands than he does if I 5-bet ace, king, and queens plus to keep me honest and to prevent himself from being exploited or whatever. So the EV sacrifice of this play, which is very small, it was $1.40. It's like a big blind. It's recovered by the EV gained by the rest of my 5-bet shoving range. Because when I 5-bet shove, I'm not only going to have ace queen, I have all the other hands that I 5-bet shove with. By doing it with ace queen, I will get called by a wider range, which allows me to extract more value with each of the other hands in my range. So it's sort of like a defensive 5-bet shove. I'm not necessarily doing it because I think I have the best hand when I get called, but I think I'm getting folds often enough. My equity's okay, pretty close to fine when called, that I don't mind the spot. And if I need a hand to do it with, what better one than ace queen, a hand that does pretty well if he just flats my 3-bet too. Now, one thing to acknowledge is that I didn't consider flatting. I think the calculations for the EV of flatting is insanely complicated because ranges and flops and board textures and all that crazy shit that actually a lot of you guys probably know better than I do at this point. But I wanted to give you guys an intro to how to do some math. And any real math guys out there, please throw the full breakdown in the video for the calculations so the other people who want to learn about math can learn. Because I know there are a few of the subscribers and followers who are really good with their math and really know how to break it down. And I would love to see your guys' thoughts and work. Also worth noting, I didn't factor in combinatorics and card removal, so my calculations are not perfect. I acknowledge that, and I am not a math guy. Anyway, for all the more action-oriented people out there who want to see what happened, well, I went all in, and he snap called, and I hit my ace. Yeah. In fact, I hit two of them. Two of them aces. But he had ace king, and it was an unlucky hand for me. And that wraps it up for the top 5 losing pots of the Party Poker Bankroll Challenge. I hope you guys learned a little bit from the concepts and found this video beneficial. Please, as always, leave me your comments, leave me your feedback. I was so impressed. Last video on the Party Poker Bankroll Challenge, we had like 60 comments, and that's just fucking insane. I'd love to see it even go bigger. I'd love to see it hit like 100 comments, and I'd love to see this video hit 100 comments, because I realize that when I post these hands, you guys get into some good discussions, and it's not me talking to you anymore. It's you talking in and amongst yourselves. It's you guys thinking. It's you guys working together, putting your heads together to become better players together, and that's what a community is all about, and that's what Grips Poker Training was all about, was creating this community for you guys who, you know, maybe couldn't afford or didn't want to go to training sites or didn't want to wade through a huge form and wanted a more friendly, casual environment to work in. And yeah, hit those comment boards and take advantage of what we have, because we have a great community and a great thing going on, and I love what I'm seeing. Also, if you guys liked what you saw in the video and you think that, you know, these games are as good as I think they are, and you think there's value, please use the link below the video if you want to sign up to Party Poker to show your support for the project. And I will continue to keep giving you guys training videos to help you take your game to the next level. Please give me your suggestions on what you'd like to see next. I have 50,000 hands on Party Poker that I can go through. Do you guys want to see top 5 spots with ace king? Do you want to see overpairs, how I played sets, bluff catchers, inducing, multi-barrel bluffs? I'm sure with my poker tracker or hold'em manager I can get the filter set up so that I can get those specific kind of hands. But let me know what you guys want to see, and I will do my best to try to give you that content. That's going to wrap it up for me. If you guys like the project, you find it's helpful, please subscribe to the channel, show your support there. Say what up in the comments. Keep talking, guys. And let us know how you're doing on Facebook, too. I've been getting great posts about people who've been crushing it. The results have been insane, so I love to hear that. Keep telling me the good news, and keep on taking in this information and putting in that good work. This has been Evan for Grips.com. Now it's your turn. Go out there and get stacking.